amen again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our presider, Reverend Hicks, and Pastor Trey, Pastor Tate, all of our sons in the house. To each of you, it is so good to be here and to be alive. Our deacons, we thank God. Reverend Smith, glad to see you here. All of you, we thank you so much for this wonderful and marvelous privilege. Thank you, Sister Holmes, for blessing us with this beautiful song. Reverend Moore, glad to see all of our sons and each of you in this house. John chapter 6, verses 1 through 13. John chapter 6, verses 1 through 13. After these things, Jesus went over the sea of Galilee, which is called the Sea of Tiberias. And a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. The Passover feast of the Jews was nigh. When Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw great company come unto him, he said unto Philip, Where shall we buy bread that these may eat? This he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennies worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, There's a lad here, which has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? Jesus said, Make the men sit down. And there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down. Likewise of the fish as much as they would. And when they were full, he said unto the disciples, Get up the fragments, that nothing remain, nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Thank you so much. I want to walk through this text and allow the Holy Spirit to tailor the truth of the text that is setting before us. There are several, ushers, you may be seated, there are several stars or several key persons in the text that you may be able to identify with. As you stroll through this crowd, through this text, find the person in the text that most remind you of you. That's first of all, in the crowd, the disciples. These are the fellows that have been following Jesus now for about 3 years. Disciples are learners. Second, in the crowd, there are various individuals which are the disciples. That's Philip that's in the crowd. And then there's Andrew that's in the crowd. And then there is the lad that's in the crowd. And then there is the crowd. And then there is Jesus. Which of these in this crowd can you relate to the most? Now, this is the only, perhaps one of the only miracles that is recorded by all 4 of the gospel writers. Normally what Matthew say, it's overlooked by Mark, Luke, and John. And what John said most of the time, Matthew, Mark, and Luke omit. But this is one passage, one miracle. For some reason, the Holy Spirit had all four writers to mention. Take time in your leisure time to study all four. You would be blessed if you did. They approach the text a little different, but all four deal with the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus had been teaching all day, had been doing some extremely difficult teaching. Remember last week that we dealt with chapter 5 when he healed the man at the pool. After he healed the man, they tried to get rid of Jesus because they say he did it on the Sabbath day. Now in John 6, he's after the again. They'd been busy all day, and I mentioned to us before, and I'll say it again, that there must come a time when you must come apart and rest. If you don't come apart and rest, eventually you will come apart. They had been busy. It was now evening time. There are two evenings. One started at 3 and end at 6, and then that's another evening that give you another extra 45 minutes. They were in a desert place in the hills. Now remember, the Bible is loaded with hills and mountains. It was a mountain called Mount Ararat where the ark landed when the flood was over. That's a mount called Moriah, where Abraham offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice. That's a mount called Sinai, where Moses went to receive the written law. That's a mount called Pisgah, where God showed Moses the promised land. There's a mount called Nebo, where God buried Moses and turned around and buried Moses' grave. There's a mount called Carmel, where Elijah challenged the God that answers by fire. There's a mount called Zion, where David found out God is a strong hope in the time of trouble. That's a mount called Olive, where Jesus would retire and pray all night long. There's a mountain called Hermon, where Jesus was transfigured, his divinity outshine his humanity. Then there's a mountain called Calvary, where Jesus paid the sin debt. And many times when the Bible referred to Jesus' movement and teaching, he don't name the hills a mountain. He just say he went into the mountain. Jesus frequented the mountain because Jesus spent time with God alone in mountains. Now there's a crowd following him in the mountain. The crowd was there, and the disciples came to Jesus because it was evening and discovered that the crowd was hungry. The disciples did what the disciples normally do. They said to Jesus, "Send them away." The disciples were good at sending folk away. The Syrophoenician woman came to Jesus and had problems with her child and wanted Jesus to heal the baby, but the disciples said, "Send her away." When blind Bartimaeus was on the Jericho road wanting to receive his sight, and he cried, "Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me," the disciples said to him, "Shut up." They always want to send folk away. There are three people in every crowd. There is the figurers, there's the fillers, and there's the faithers. The figurers are the people that sit back and figure stuff out. I figure based upon this and that this ought to be done. There's always some figurers. They ride in the car with you. They tell you, get in the left lane instead of in the right lane. The figurers, they tell you where to go and where not to go. The figurers, but then there's the fillers. I feel, talk to me somebody, they base stuff upon how I feel at the moment. But it depends on what you're going through as to how you feel. Because you may feel one way today, another way tomorrow. Don't base decisions upon feelings. But then there are the faithers, the people that walk and move by faith. That you do know that we are faith people. Romans 1:17 said the just shall live by faith. Corinthians said we walk not by sight, but by faith. Anything that's not of faith is sin. Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it is impossible to please him. But he that cometh to God must believe that he is. And that is a reward of them that diligently seek him. We are faith livers. We are faith walkers. They said to Jesus, send the crowd away. But what they didn't know is that they put a tremendous burden upon Jesus. Sometimes when folk do stuff, it put a burden on the leader. There's so many things that happen in our church and other churches as well, that when members make decisions based upon their personal problem, they want the pastor to make a decision based upon how they feel. And it put pressure on him, because he have to look down the road and see not just this situation, but there are others coming. They put pressure on Jesus by saying, send the crowd away. How would it look? Here Jesus is. In John 6:35, say, I am the bread of life. And now somebody behind him hungry, and he sent them away. Jesus is not just natural bread. He is sustaining bread. He is sufficient bread. He is spiritual bread. And now they want him to send the crowd away. That was a problem. And you see the problem in the text. The story opened the problem. People hungry. And remember, there was no McDonald's. There was no Burger Kings. No Wendy's. No Zaxby's. Talk to me, somebody. That was a long ways for them to go find food. They had been following Jesus. They had been taught by Jesus. Now, accumulated an appetite. You know, when you hear the word, it make you hungry. That's why y'all rush out of here to a restaurant to eat, because you have created an appetite. Only 3 people that don't have an appetite. One is the person that's already full. Second is a person that's sick. And the third is the person that's dead. Anybody else got an appetite? How am I doing, y'all? The scene opened with a problem. Now remember, every miracle comes from the results of a problem. We say, I'm looking for a miracle. Be careful when you say it. Because a miracle come at the end of a problem. Talk to me, somebody. When you say, I want a miracle, you say, I want God to mess me up. Because God sometimes have to mess us to bless us. He have to afflict us to lift us. Sometimes he makes our body sick to heal our soul. That's a problem. But can I say to us, problems can be beneficial. As quiet as it is kept, All of us are on planet Earth now because God designed us to solve problems. I've told you this before. Man's computer messed up on him. He found a technician to come to his house to repair the computer. The technician looked at the computer and said, "Take me to the parts store." He went to the parts store and he said to the guy, "I need a screw to fit such and such a brand number on this computer." They brought the screw. The screw cost 25 cents. He brought it back, put it in the computer, started up, computer worked well. He wrote out his bill, $275. The man had a fit. "Man, you done lost your mind. You must be on drugs or something. You been smoking that stuff." He said, No. He said, "I took you to the store. I saw you pay 25 cents for this screw. And you charged me $275? "Yes, sir." He said, "Can you tell me why?" He said, "I'm charging you 25 cents for the screw. I'm charging you $274.75 to know where to put it." We're designed to solve problems. You know why we have plumbers? Because somebody gonna have plumbing problems. You know why we have heat and air folk? Because somebody's unit is gonna go out. You know why we have mechanics? That's going to be a car that's going to stop. Y'all don't like me in this house. All of us are designed to solve problems. Don't run from problems. Learn how to solve them. If you want to make some money, learn how to be a problem solver. Jesus was a problem solver. Came to Jesus because there was a problem. They said, "There was a lad here with 2 fish and 5 barley loaves." Have I put y'all to sleep in this house? He needed to handle this situation. Talk to me, somebody. That's a problem. So there's a lad here. Jesus says to Philip, "Where shall we find bread enough?" Philip said, Jesus asked a question to prove Philip. Whenever Jesus asks a question, it is not for information. Because Jesus is omniscient. He knows everything. When he asked Adam, "Adam, where are you?" It was not that he didn't know where Adam was. It was that Adam didn't know where Adam was. He asked Ezekiel, "Can these bones live?" It's not that he didn't know they could live. He knew Ezekiel didn't know they could live. When he asked, "Who touched me?" he knew the woman was there because the virtue had gone out of it. But the woman didn't know he knew. Talk to me, son. When he said to Abraham, "Is anything too hard for God?" Am I putting you all to sleep? He knew nothing was too hard for God. Have I got a witness? Because no one can wreck God's plan. No one, talk to me, somebody, can ruin his purpose. No one can resist his power because he's sovereign. He do what he want to do whenever he get ready to do it. He did it to prove Philip, to see what Philip said. Philip said, 200 pennies worth of bread is not sufficient, that all of us may take a little. But here's what Philip did. He counted the pennies in the bank. But he didn't count Jesus, that is the bank. Whenever you count and don't add Jesus to the aquarium, you always come up short. But Jesus plus any number is a majority. Am I putting y'all to sleep in this house? He counted, Lord, without counting the Lord. Now watch this. Philip was a disciple. He'd been with Jesus 3 years, and yet he couldn't see past 200 pennies. That's one of the figurers. He's trying to figure stuff out. Have you ever been around figurers? Always trying to figure out how you got what you got. They see you in a new car and you're making less money than they make it. They're trying to figure out. You got a pretty house and they living in a hut. They're trying to figure. Most times stuff they figure out is wrong. Philip was this figurer. Andrew said, well, there's a lad here with 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. He had looked in the lad's bag. That's some nosy folk. There's some nosy folk. He looked in the little boy's lunch bag. Can I see your lunch? Then Andrew said, but what is this among so many? He was the filler. I just feel like we gonna come up short. Talk to me, son. I just feel like we ain't got enough. Andrew, every time you saw him, he was bringing somebody to Jesus. Remember the first time we saw him, he was bringing his brother, Simon Peter. Now he brings a lad. That's a good record. To be able to be on the scene of bringing somebody to Jesus. He said, there's a lad here, ain't got but 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. What is that among so many? There is the problem. Then there's the probe. He's probing the crowd. Then there's the prospect. How did the lad get there? What was he doing in the crowd? I hold that the lad had parents that were Jesus followers. When children discover that you're in love with Jesus, they want to be in love too. But now you can't act like it at church and not at home, because they pick up what you do at home. I can tell just as good when I walk into a family's house and the parents been talking about me. The children tell it every time. I was down here one day, right here at the altar, right here. Little fella came up to me and said, "You so stupid." His mother grabbed, "Stop that boy, stop that." I said, "He got it from you." Y'all don't like me this time. Be careful what you say around your children, because they're going to repeat it. If they see you loving on the Lord, they're going to love him. 3 little boys was out talking, and they was talking about what their daddies had. One little boy said, my daddy owned a bank. Another boy said, my daddy owned a car dealership. One was a doctor, the other was an attorney. The little boy's daddy was a preacher. Some little boy whose daddy was a preacher said, my daddy owned hell. He said, what you mean he owned hell? How will you get that from? I overheard daddy telling mama at the dinner table that them deacons gave it to him. Don't y'all mess with me. I hadn't taken my medicine. That's a lad here with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But what I discovered is Jesus' major in taking a little and making a lot out of it. There was a woman, place called Zarephath, whose meal bell had run out. Prophet came by and said to her, fix me a whole cake of bread. She said, Reverend, I hate to tell you, I reached the bottom of the bell. Just got enough to make a whole cake for me and my son. Been saving that to the last. We're going to eat it, lay down and die. Prophet said, fix me mine first. It's okay, Reverend. You want us to go and start, we'll do it. Fixed him a whole cake. And they used to have sifters in the meal bell. Because when we would grind the corn, and I've done it, grind the corn, sometimes it'd be husks and sometimes be little hard particles of corn that's still there. You keep from putting that in the cornbread. You would sift it out. So they kept the sifter in the meal bag. When a woman fixed the whole cake, she threw the sifter back in the bag. And while walking away, it dawned on her. She didn't hear it hit the bottom. Strange, because if it's empty, it rattles at the bottom. She didn't hear it hit the bottom, so she went and looked in the barrel. There was some more meal in there. Now, it didn't fill up, but every time she'd go back to get some meal, it was some more in there. Because every time she was shoveling out from the top, the Lord was pushing in from the bottom. Am I here by myself? Because God can take a little and make a lot out of it. Do I have a witness? Text said, Jesus said to him, bring me the lad. Because I think the parents said, I'm going to give you a little more lunch than what you need. Because there may be somebody else in the crowd that's hungry. It's good for parents to teach the children how to share. Teach them how to be liberal with others, because if you learn how to give, it's one of the greatest investments you'll ever have. Said, Lord, take your lunch with you. The Bible says, Jesus, Lord, says to the disciples, make the men sit down. Sounds strange to me. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all 4 different in their description of the story. But all four agree on this one thing, that Jesus said, make the men sit down. Y'all don't like me. Now, Jesus, why do you want the men to sit down? I tell you why. It's because that's all they can do. They can't turn fish into fish. They can't turn bread into bread. He said, stop prancing the floor. Stop staying up all night. Get somewhere and sit down. Ever got a witness? They got too many people say, I trust God, but yet you stand up all night. I mean, Psalms 121 said, the Lord neither slumber nor do he sleep. And since God is up all night, it don't make sense for both of us to be up all night. Get somewhere, lay down, go to sleep. Y'all don't like me. Help me say, go to sleep. Say it again. Go. Yeah. Lay down and go to sleep. But he said, make the men sit down. Now watch what the text said. There was much grass in the place. Here's what he said. Not only am I making you sit down, I'm going to make you comfortable. Reverend, Lord, I'm going through a difficult time. The Lord said, but I'm going to make you comfortable. Lord, I'm headed for surgery in a few days. The Lord said, but I'm going to make you comfortable. Sit down. Now watch what happened. Several things had to transpire. Number one, Lord, Jesus, there was a transfer from the lad to the Lord. In other words, the miracle was not going to work in the lad's hand, but it was going to work in the Lord's hand. That was a transfer. But then secondly, that was a taken in the message, because Jesus took the bread. If you want something to happen, there got to be a transfer, because when it come out of your hands into the master's hand, something started to happen. Don't be afraid to turn it over into the hand of the Lord. Because in your hands, it means starvation. But in the Lord's hands, it means bread in a starving land. In your hand, it meant everybody would go home hungry. But in the Lord's hand, it meant appetites would be satisfied. In your hand, it meant darkness. But in the Lord's hand, it meant light. Have I got a witness here? The Bible says that he gave all that was sick. In other words, if some brother decided, I ain't going through this, I'm not going to sit down, he going to have to feed me standing. He missed his meal because he didn't sit down. The text said everybody that was sick ate. Won't it be a shame to miss your blessing because of being disobedient? I know it sounds like just a little minute thing. But if God says sit down, then you got to sit down. If God says shout, you got to shout. If God said praise, you got to go on and praise. If God says sing, you got to sing. If God says steady, you got to do what the Lord said do. How many know that blessings in obeying the Lord? I'm out of here. I've held y'all long enough, but how many know the God I serve? Can he do it? I said, can he do it? Can he do it? Can't he do it? Nothing is impossible with God. No mountains too high for him to climb. No valleys too low for him to travel through. There's no sickness he cannot heal. There's no problems he cannot solve. There's no power he can't overtake, because my God, he's better than good, sweeter than honey, mightier than a mountain, wider than a round, straighter than a cross. He's purer than air, clearer than a crystal. Tapes can't measure him. Water can't drown him. Fire can't burn him. Death can't kill him. Oh, shucks. The grave can't hold him. Can I holler one time just from England? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hallelujah. It's about. Eyes are closed. Gracious God, we thank you again for your word, touching this house and across the land. Those that have received your word, willing to respond and accept it.